So let's get to the main event, folks. Like I said, our session today, if you're just joining us, our lunchtime live is from animal rights lawyer to the vegan family cookbook. We're doing a Q&A with the wonderful Anna Pippus. Kirsten, if you don't mind spotlighting Anna and I, that would be wonderful. Let me just give you the official bio on Anna. Anna is a mama of two, and she is the author of the Vegan Family Cookbook, Simple Balanced Cooking for Real Life. And this is a cookbook and a strategy manual to make nutritious, delicious, everyday vegan eating easier. Yes, there it is. Let's do a double. And Anna is also the voice behind the popular Instagram account and blog, Easy Animal Free. She's a big one on Instagram, folks. I just found out that she's got the blue check mark. I didn't even know the blue check mark meant anything, but somebody schooled me the other day. Look it up. Anna holds a degree in law and psychology, and she has worked as an animal protection lawyer and campaigner for over a decade before this sort of new route. And she is Animal Justice's former director of farmed animal advocacy. So we're going to take questions today. This is a Q&A. I want you to be able to ask Anna about anything about what we talk about, anything about the cookbook, about easy prep, about just generally making veganism easier for folks. But I've got a lot of questions to start off with, Anna. So where do we start?
Woo! I know, there's a lot of information in there.
I know. Well, okay. So first of all, you were talking about your decade as an animal rights lawyer and an animal advocacy sort of campaigner. And for those pretty well most of that decade, I've been like sort of on your coattails with you on this journey.
Colleagues for most of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit, before we get into the cookbook, a little bit more about your general journey as an animal advocate. So, we worked together we founded Mercy for Animals Canada, and got to do some of the first undercover investigations in Canada into animal farming. And then you became, we both moved over to Animal Justice, and you became the director of farmed animal advocacy. And you've also headed up a bunch of food policy and law initiatives. And now you are the author of a best-selling cookbook. So I just, I want to just kind of have you share a little bit about that journey from focusing on legal changes for animals to shepherding people through vegan eating and the cooking experience, because I know this is a really personal journey for you.
Yes, it's definitely a personal journey. And in fact, that's one of my sort of themes when talking with others, is that everyone has their own beautiful life story to author. And it's going to look a little different for everyone. And that's one of the really incredible and beautiful and exciting things about life, is that we all have our own sort of way of bringing our skills and our ideas, to the movement and to our lives. So for me, the common thread, I think, throughout all of it has been that I've always had an instinct that I wanted to be helpful, to be useful. I have like a very strong urge to be a helpful person. And so I actually started off in psychology, and I was working in social work, and I was dealing with a sort of a client base that was very, very vulnerable and marginalized. And that experience, although I had been sort of planning to do my PhD in psychology and become a therapist, that experience caused me to want to go to law school, because I thought I can be way more helpful if I can create changes in law and policy. So when I went to law school, it wasn't necessarily to become an animal lawyer, it was to be helpful. And so in law school, I studied everything that I studied. Like, I didn't do like business law or anything like that. I studied like refugee law and health equity law and reproductive and sexual health law and animal law and social justice law. So my course selection was very much reflective of my idea that, like, how can I help? How can I be of service? How can I? And what I found with in law school is that people they're smart and they're energetic and they're committed and they're caring, and everyone virtually cares about human rights issues and even environmental issues. It's kind of like assumed that these are just, everyone cares about these issues. And those jobs are in high demand. Like, if you want to get a job in international human rights law, like, you got to be at like the top of your game, because those jobs are highly, highly competitive. So I thought, I'm not really going to bring much to the table. Like they don't need me, you know, I'm not needed in this area. But with animals, I felt that, okay, even amongst the most progressive people, they do not take this issue seriously. Meanwhile, animals are suffering profoundly. I mean, even from before birth, when it's genetic manipulation, through to birth, where they're separated from their moms, from their families, their entire lives of deprivation, and then to a terrifying slaughterhouse, and then the ultimate, denigration of being eaten. So I thought, this is not like hurt feelings. This is like, torture. And I use the word in the literal sense. So, and farmed animals in particular, I care about all animals. I care about all sentient beings. I care about all life on earth. But with farmed animals, it's just the numbers are just astronomical. And again, like I wanted to help, I cared. And I thought I could spend my entire life working on, I don't know, whatever, pick an issue. But if I could only help a few animals, I won't feel satisfied enough. I want to help as many animals as possible. And so that's how I landed up doing farmed animal law.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because honestly, and I always even forget the social work part, like that,
Yeah.
like that's the first chapter of Anna. And then we go on to law. Okay. So
it was a necessary step for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, doing that work, and Kimberly, we had so much sort of like fun is the wrong word, but we were really creating something new. We did Mercy for Animals. And then we thought, no, like, let's really create a Canadian organization. And so it wasn't that we both sort of went coincidentally to Animal Justice. That was a deliberate move. We said, let's take Animal Justice, which at that time had been a very small organization sort of plodding along for years, and let's blow it up into a national organization, to a force to be reckoned with. And that's what we did. And that was a really beautiful chapter of my life with all of you amazing people. And we did some really exciting, groundbreaking work. And it was very, very gratifying for a long time for me. We were getting issues in the news, and really, I think a lot of animal law is really communications. It's really getting the issues out there, getting them talked about, getting them sort of on the political agenda. So really, animal law is much, much more about being sort of like a PR person for the animals with your legal background and your legal knowledge.
Yeah, because we need to change the court of public opinion before anything's going to actually change in the courts.
Exactly. And ultimately, I came to realize that for me, so a lot of people how do you help animals, farm animals? You go vegan, right? Like this is not, I can say that pretty plainly in this group of people. I don't need to probably argue that. I think everyone here probably knows, like, that's how you help farm animals. And so I came to a point where there's all this talk about laws and everything, but ultimately people just needed to know what to make for dinner. And I thought, right. I know what to make for dinner.
The best of intentions, but if they don't know how to do it day to day, we're losing them.
Exactly. So I would hear that all the time from people, like, I see what you're putting out there, I see what you're saying, but like, I don't know what to make. I don't know where to begin. And change is overwhelming for virtually all of us in certain aspects, in certain regards. So if people don't have solutions and tools and encouragement, change will be very hard for them. And not just because they'll refuse to change, but because they won't even engage with the issue. They won't even look at what's going on if it seems like solutions are going to be too difficult, because it's going to create, I sort of got back to my psychology. I'm like, there's going to be so many mental blocks and barriers and defensiveness if we don't provide solutions. And I actually found, because law, I'm very sensitive and I'm a helper, a healer. So for me, law is like maybe not the best fit for my personality, which is kind of ultimately why I ended up moving away from it a little bit. But with food, it was beautiful. I was connecting with people. I was meeting people where they were at. I was seeing the good in people again. So it was a really beautiful healing time for me as well. I'm sure you talk a lot in Animal Justice Academy about healing burnout and sustainability. And for me, doing food, not only as a creative outlet, because there's the creation and the writing and the recipes and the photography, but there's also just the connection. And for me, that human connection and the positivity, it was just it really brought me back to my love of humanity again, and really what I wanted to do. So that is the journey in a nutshell.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I've seen, a change in you. I mean, you've always been amazing, but It was a lot of pressure. It's a pretty dark, despairing place to be constantly, holding up a mirror for people to show them what's wrong, and
Yeah,
then not,
it's
not
very
necessarily being able
hard.
to help them figure out how to change. And so it's really, it's important for us at Animal Justice to continue that work. But we need people like you that again are just going to take people's hands and say, now that you've seen this, and now that your hearts and mind is open, let
Mhm.
me help you figure out how to execute this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Well said.
So, the food, I know the reason a lot of people are here. So let's talk a little bit about the journey into food, because it didn't just start with the book. It's actually started with this,
Mhm.
amazing Instagram account that, did you think it would blow up the way it did?
I don't know what I thought. I think I was just following my instincts. Like, now I'm gonna start. I had a really strong instinct to start an Instagram account just to share the daily things, and like, yeah, it got big. I mean,
Yeah.
not enormous, but there's definitely some, an audience of people like who are paying attention and who are appreciating the content. So that, yeah, I was really happy about that. I mean, at first I was like, oh, hallelujah, because all I had wanted was an audience to get, to talk to about veganism. And it was like we were working so hard with that, with animal justice, to get things in the news and to get the attention. And then I was like, oh, I have my own platform. I can say whatever I want, whenever I want. I was like euphoric.
Yeah, I mean, the power.
Yeah, well, and just
Hmm.
finally, it was like very just rewarding and a relief.
Yeah. And people are there because they really want to be. You're not having to chase
Right.
people. And again, they're there, they're ready to just
Yes.
sort of sop it all up, right? So
It's
that must
very
be.
depleting when you're constantly engaged in arguments and like when you're having to explain to people like why are battery cages wrong? It's like, oh, like, isn't this obvious? Yeah. So it's like
Mm.
when you're connecting with people over food, it's like they're already there. They're already kind of on board with like, there is a problem here. And I'm like, let's talk about the solution. So yes, it was a very big contrast.
Well, and so your sort of approach, and I mean, let's talk about the cookbook and Instagram.
Mhm.
But I mean, first of all, you've just released the vegan family cookbook.
Yes.
Um, and the last I heard, it was already named as one of Indigo's most anticipated Canadian books. It's an Amazon #1 best-selling vegan cookbook. Any more updates on that and how the cookbook is rolling out?
Yeah, so Indigo selected it this summer as one of its most anticipated Canadian books and also as
Amazing.
one of its most anticipated cookbooks. And then it's been kind of hovering on the various Amazon bestseller lists, including like the best, like the entire all of Amazon. It was like one of the top sellers on all of Amazon for a while. And also different like news publications have different ways of calculating their bestseller list, but Post Media News, which does like Vancouver Sun in the province out here, and I don't know, the Toronto Sun, I think, and I'm not sure exactly what in Ontario or across the country, but a lot of them. So they had it on their international new release bestseller list. So that
Oh
was
my
that was
God,
great,
Anna. It's
and I
like
was happy.
everything this woman does, she nails. Like seriously. Like what do we always say, Anna? If you want somebody to do it right, ask a busy
Give it
person,
to a
right?
busy person. That is me. That is me. I'm just
Yeah,
like I'm in go
totally.
mode. Like let's get it done.
Yeah, what you touch turns to vegan animal rights gold.
Oh yes,
Um,
thank you.
so Anna, what made you think that in this? I never thought I'd say there's so many vegan cookbooks and so many vegan blogs. Like that's an amazing thing to say. Like 10 years ago,
I
I would
know.
have like it's
Yes,
like, oh yeah, there's so many, but there's so many
there's
now.
so
So
many. Mhm.
what did you think you could do by joining into the fold, by jumping in? What did
Oh
you
yes.
particularly want to corner?
Yeah, and that's such a great question because like again earlier my theme of like I just want to be helpful. I definitely would not have written another cookbook just so that I could have a cookbook because I wasn't interested in that. I only wanted to write a cookbook if it could add something different. And as with my Instagram where I thought people don't need like sort of fancy recipes, like they need to know like the day to day. Like most of us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner aren't getting out a cookbook and finding a recipe and like gathering our, that's ridiculous. Like we're just eating like simple, simple things, right? Like we're just like pulling things together. But that's a skill. That's a skill set. And it's a new skill when it's vegan, when vegan is new to you. So that's what I wanted to try to convey with my Instagram, was like the day-to-day of it. And that's also what I hope to do with my book, which is a little bit different, because on social media, of course, there's video and there's sort of engagement, like comments and back and forth. But with the book, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how I can do this without a video format. And so what I did was I created the book according to, so for a lot of us, like a dinner is like, we can spend half an hour cooking, but what can really sometimes become overwhelming is like, what is for dinner, right? Like, oh my God, what's for dinner again tonight? And you blank. You're like, I can't think of a single thing that I enjoy eating or that I could cook right now. Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
And that was the problem that I had solved for myself by cooking with meal themes. So Mondays are pasta, Tuesdays are bowls, Wednesdays are one pot Wednesdays, Thursdays are basically like Asian nights, so stir fries and soups and things like that, noodles. And then fun Fridays, we have just burgers or pizza. And then I don't plan anything for the weekends because I will get burnt out. So we just kind of like graze on leftovers, or like Arden will make brunch, or we'll have like, I don't know, just we have meals with family and friends a lot on the weekends and stuff like that. And then it's back to Monday pasta, a nice easy Monday meal. So the book is laid out according to that. So for Monday pasta, you can just like, flip to the day. And of course, you don't have to cook like this. Like you don't have to cook by theme. But I have a section on walking you through if you want to cook by theme and you don't like my themes. Here's, other ways that you can do it. Like you could have like handhelds night, or you could have people have Taco Tuesday or whatever. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. And then another thing about the book is that the recipes that I include are real recipes. Like I am not a recipe developer or a content creator. I am a mom feeding my family, and these are the actual recipes that I feed to my family. And these are the recipes that I fed to my family when I had newborns and when I had toddlers and when I was sleep deprived and when I was busy. These are the recipes that are tested to work for a very exhausted mom's brain. And that's important because they're not just like simple, like they're simple in a way that feels manageable, because it's not just time, right? Like it can be half an hour, but if it's like fiddly and involved in many steps and dishes and things, that is still exhausting for a busy person. And as an aside, I think a lot of recipe developers are not parents, so they might not really get like that kind of mentality of like, I'm cross-eyed, I can't even read the steps. Those are way too many steps. So I tried to make it short ingredients list, very streamlined preparation. I was always trying to be like as like judicious with my words as possible. So it's just really simple and straightforward. So it's just when you're tired, you can open it and look at it and go, I can do that. So that's what I did with the recipes. But then also in the book, because a lot of eating is sort of pulling things out of the fridge and making sure leftovers don't go to waste and kind of using what you have, I wanted to ensure that the book included a lot of like sort of how-tos, and not only like encouragement, like you can do it, but also a lot of like very practical, like how to make a filling salad, how to make a bowl, like what's the formula, I'm not pulling it out of thin air. I have sort of like a mental process that I go through when I make a bowl, and that's all sort of explained in the book. How to make a pot of soup without a recipe. Again, I go through a mental process that starts with sort of like, what kind of soup? Is it going to be tomato based? Is it going to be potato based, etc. So the book contains all of that. It contains how to pack a kid's lunchbox, and then there's a lot of information in the front as well about, especially for people who are new to vegan cooking, like how to make vegan food delicious and satisfying. Because if you're taking out the meat, you're taking out the fat and the savory. So you have to replace that, and the texture, so you have to replace that with vegan ingredients, which is very easy to do, but I explain how to do it. So I hope that the book I really didn't want to, like, especially on my Instagram, people who follow me there will know that I often show, and this is deliberate, cooking without recipes. I'm pouring in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I have this, it's going bad, I'm using this, because I want to demonstrate, like, you don't need to make this exact thing that I made, but I want you to see that you can cook a little bit by feel. And the other thing that does when you're cooking off recipe is that it brings you from like chore state to flow state. When you're in chore state when you're following a recipe and getting your measuring tools and back and forth. But when you're in the flow state, when you're like, ooh, little of this, little of that, little taste, need some vinegar, that's creativity. That feels good. And it's much more energizing and rewarding. So I try to imbue as much of that as possible into the book, which admittedly is a little bit harder in book form because I can't, there's no... Yeah. But I did try as much as possible. And the recipes all have like variations, how to change it. Some cookbooks will say like, follow the recipe exactly. In my book, I'm like, don't follow my recipes.
Oh my God. Yeah, Anna, like seriously, when I knew the theme of your book, I was just like, I'm not that I have human children, but I think for all of us that are animal advocates, I mean, we're busy as shit.
Yes,
Like we
yes,
don't have time to be,
on a plan.
doing some fancy ass recipes. We need something that's simple. And
Okay.
I mean, I like cooking and I'm a very intuitive cooker, but I need new ideas. I
Yeah.
just need new ideas, but I need new ideas that are easy, like that I can just kind of look at and go, oh, that's how you could spice that up, or that's what you could do. And that's what I love this book for.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. Yeah, we all need fresh ideas. And on that as well, like it's definitely not just a book for vegans or for families. It's the vegan family cookbook because that's the problem that I personally was solving when I was trying to figure out how to like cook all of the meals for my family and that I was coming up. I was like, I'm a good cook and I got lots of cookbooks. Like, why can I not do this? So that was the problem that I solved. And then once I solved it, I wrote the book about it. So that's why
Yes.
it's the vegan family cookbook. But absolutely, I'm hearing from lots of people who do not have human children, who don't have families, who live alone, who live with elderly relatives, whoever, who have like teenagers that want to go vegan. It's teenagers bringing it into their family. So it's not just for people like in my stage of life, although that's who I had in my heart when I wrote it because that's who I had been. But anybody who just wants like kind of simple ideas or fresh ideas or some new tips, I hope that it can be helpful.
Amazing, Anna. So I just wanted to mention that we are open for questions. If you have a question, just do star 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 Q, so it just jumps out at us. And Kirsten, if you can keep an eye on the Facebook group as well, just to see if there's questions coming in from there. But we do have one from Kelvin, Kelvin Neufeld. And Kelvin, I'm so
Good.
sorry. I said free the prison farms. I know it's evolved the prison farms. I just had like a mid hump week brain fog, but from Evolve the Prison Farms. And Calvin is asking, well, he says, way to go, Anna. Canada's food guide emphasizes plant-based proteins and water, not milk, as the drink of choice. Your cookbook fits beautifully with the direction things are going. Also, the new food guide puts emphasis on the social aspects of eating and the joy of eating, which again is so consistent with what you describe about how much joy and health and connectedness food and cooking have brought into your life. Congratulations. I'm not sure if there's a question there, Calvin. um, a
It's
question
such a
comment.
beautiful comment. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I feel like you've articulated what I was trying to say, like in a way more concise way. So yeah, what Kelvin said. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And so have you found, Anna, just anecdotally, that the Canada Food Guide shifts have been affecting people sort of looking for more plant-based options?
I have not heard anyone saying that,
Mhm.
but my belief, based on my sort of like educated guess, is that I think that things like that really matter. And I think, yes, for the average person, it put into their head the idea that I should try to eat more beans and lentils. And that's another thing, if you aren't familiar with my work, I am a big advocate for beans and lentils. Like, I'm not interested in like recreating like a cauliflower burger or whatever. Like they're delicious and awesome. And if you love that, like power to you. I'm not like raining on your parade. But for me, I'm like, we got to be eating our beans and lentils for a lot of reasons. They're nutritious, they're environmentally friendly. So I'm always trying to work those into meals. So I think that, yeah, I mean, people definitely are starting to get not necessarily that they need to go vegan, but that there are a lot of good reasons for becoming more vegan. And I'm sure the food guide is one of those seeds.
So let's talk about beans and lentils a little bit. So you go more for beans and lentils than say tofu, for example. Is
Oh,
that
or
right?
tofu. Tofu
Or
I
tofu?
include as a bean because it's
Okay,
made of
I see.
soybean.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one thing. I mean, we've been talking about making it delicious, but a lot of these recipes are also about good health and whole foods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just try to
Yeah,
hide
because
that because no, it's just like make it delicious, but also make it healthy.
yeah, I'm
So.
always trying to find that sweet spot. Like I'm triangulating like deliciousness and nutrient. Because
Yeah.
if you have like it's easy to make delicious vegan food, and there's a role for this absolutely with like white flour on top of cauliflower and deep fry it and like, but it's like it's not gonna. There's no it's a vegetable and it's like a bunch of oil and it's like that is not how I choose to eat. Again, I don't want to like rain on anyone's parade, so I hate to like contrast myself with what others are doing. So I just want to say like there's a role for that, because for some people, even just to know like, oh, this is really delicious and satisfying, and so sometimes that is really important, and everyone has to, again, like everyone has to like author their own story, and for some people what they're contributing is showing people the decadence and the joy of vegan eating. Like Hogtown Vegan, is that still around? That was
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
around. Yeah.
Like, I love what Hogtown Vegan is doing, because it's showing, it's opening people's minds. It's opening, it's shifting their paradigm. So there's definitely a role for that. But me, this is everyday vegan cooking. It's cooking for my family. Like I'm vegan for the animals, but I'm plant-based for me, for my health. So the book is definitely like eating lots of vegetables and beans and lentils, and it's nutritionally balanced. Like I try to, whenever possible, go for like it, kind of like make it as healthy as possible, as nutritious as possible, without really making it taste like cardboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Goldie that is over on in the Facebook group watching the live, and she said, "Are some of the recipes made in mind with getting the most amount of nutrients to be healthy and balanced, but in a simple, easy to cook recipe?"
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we just, so the tagline of the book is simple, balanced cooking for real life. And I think that kind of sums it up. It's like, it also has to be balanced, not just nutritious, but sort of balanced. Like it needs to be filling and you need to be getting all your nutrients. So I talk about, like we need to be paying attention to, I mean, no, people will say you don't need to pay attention to protein, but you do a little bit. You do a little bit, especially your amino acid profile. So iron and these things, like if you're just eating salads or you're just eating vegetables and grains, like you're not going to be feeling great. And that's important to me, because if you're not feeling great, and heaven forbid if you stop being vegan and then start telling everyone you stopped being vegan because you didn't feel great, that's a problem for all of us. So it's really, really, really important to me to share nutritionally balanced meals.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, Debbie is asking, did you ponder using plant-based in the title as opposed to vegan? What made you decide on the word vegan?
I did. Yes. Vegan is more, I think, clear about what I am doing. Plant-based can mean a lot of different things. It can mean plant forward, or sometimes it can mean vegan. It can mean different things. And also, like, I feel like plant-based is kind of the term that's being used now by like large companies that are introducing their plant-based offerings to the masses. And I just thought, I don't know. I think for a while I thought maybe plant-based is like the gentle entry point, and I think that's fine. I think that can be a good way to make things appealing to people. But I just thought that vegan was clear, and also I sort of feel like maybe vegan is like cooler, like President's Choice has plant-based food. Tesla has vegan seats.
I love that. Interesting.
So I wouldn't want to shy away from using vegan. I mean, yeah, I'm just calling it like it is. So I think either can work depending on who you are and what you're sharing.
Well, plus, I mean, you are just such a devoted animal advocate, Anna. So, it just it shouts out to, it shouts out your integrity and your intentions, really clearly.
I exactly. And like in the book, I talk about like why, I talk about animal farming, and, it's not throughout the entire book, but I share my story because I think we all have to share our story. And that's honestly my story. My story is like, I wasn't thinking about my health at all. In fact, I was kind of like worried. I was like, is this going to be bad for my health? Like, but I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing. So, so that's my truth.
Yeah. I'm the exact same way. I was just like, I just got to do it, and I'll figure it out. And it was like extra bonus. Oh my God, I became healthier than I ever was as a meat eater. So
exactly. It was a nice surprise.
It was a nice little bonus.
Exactly.
So let me see here. Cheryl asked, do you get a lot of feedback from people who are considering going vegan because of your book or Instagram? As in, like, have you had many conversions kind of thing?
Yes, I get a lot of feedback from people along those lines. Everyone has a different story that they share, but I get a lot of stories that say that in some way what I share has made it possible for them to go vegan, or to become more vegan, or to get a loved one to go vegan. Food is a really effective form of activism. And a lot of people aren't aren't sending that feedback, right? Like not everyone, I just think for all of the dozens, in fact, in my book proposal, I put a bunch of those messages, like for all of the dozens, maybe hundreds of messages that I've gotten from people along those lines, I have to think there's some, massive percentage more people who haven't shared that kind of story.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
yeah, it's really effective. Not everyone is going to have something to say along food, but if you do, if you're somebody who feels moved to share about food, it is a very effective way to connect with people. And it might not be like a social media or a book, like maybe it's like hosting potlucks or hosting dinners. Like back in Toronto, I used to hold like vegan protein cooking classes in my like our apartment there, Kimberly, where we lived on Dundas, like our tiny little kitchen. So,
Yes.
there's a lot of different ways for like spreading the word about food, or even just sharing cookbooks that you like talk about them, talk about blogs and social media accounts and cookbooks that you personally like, or if you have like a favorite meal that's just like so easy, maybe you make it all the time and you're even sick of it, other people aren't sick of it, share it with them, talk about it, because like, yes, vegan, animal rights is a justice movement, but the solution is food. We've got to talk about solutions.
Absolutely. And we have talked about this in different, panels or lunchtime lives, just around the whole idea that if you're working really hard on the ground level to convince people to, basically get rid of their animal exploitation in their life, you got to be ready with some resources. You really have to have your own arsenal of like, I have an arsenal. I have a digital arsenal of when I've kind of like somebody's gone, oh, I'm interested in knowing more, or I don't know what to eat and everything. I've got a whole document with all of the best resources, all of the best alternative options, all of my favorite cookbooks, YouTube channels, documentaries. Like, it's really good to have some of those resources. And you don't have to have something that complicated, but to have a couple of places where people can start is an amazing thing.
I totally agree. And it should be personal to you, like not just like sort of like a general roundup from some like animal advocacy organization, although that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I think it can really go a long way. Like have it be your, like what really helped you, like reflect on it, like spend some time like in quiet reflection, like what were the barriers for me and how did I overcome them? Because that's going to be helpful to people if you can really honestly figure out like what was hard about this for me, what did I miss, what vegan products did I hate, like
Yes.
so that you can talk about that with people, and also so that you can relate to people, so that if they look at you and you're like it's so easy, they're like, oh, it doesn't feel easy for me, like that creates a barrier. But if you say, oh yeah, like I struggled, the vegan cheeses I tried were disappointing, they were disgusting, I could not figure out for the life of me how to eat beans, whatever it is, talk about that and share it and be honest and open. And that kind of like sharing and vulnerability will give people sort of like the entry point and the permission to join you and to go, okay, yeah, like you took some steps, like I can do that too.
Absolutely. I mean, I was the biggest meat eater people had met. I loved meat.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
over the years, I realized I really love protein. My body likes
Yeah.
protein. And so I get the same, like just by eating like the pulses and tofu and everything, I get the same satisfaction.
Yeah,
So, but I needed, it helps people to know that. It helps people to
it
know that
does.
you had a journey too, and it wasn't all easy, and but you figured it out for them. It's
Yeah.
you
No,
made
exactly.
a
Yeah, and
path for them.
like sharing that can really like saying like I was the biggest meat eater. Like that's very relatable to other people who are like, well, that going vegan is fine for you because you like salad, but like I'm a big meat eater. Like so it's important that we all tell our personal story, because each of our personal story is going to connect with somebody. And then if you say like, well, what I discovered is that actually what I was really craving was like a higher protein diet. My body needs a lot of protein, but I can get that satiate, and now I crave now I crave tofu instead. Like and that's such a powerful story, and it's interesting because it's different than mine, right? Like we all have that different story. So we don't just need me and my book, we need everyone telling their story about specifically in the realm of food, like what worked for you. And yeah.
I love that. So Anna, I want to get a few tips from you. So for example, holidays are coming up. Do you have, sort of a favorite dish or two that you're, some ideas of what you sort of swap out when, say, you're going for holiday and we've got a dead animal as the centerpiece kind of thing?
Well, so I have to say that because my entire immediate family is vegan and because
Mhm.
our family has sort of become like the ground zero for holidays, because we got
Nice.
the grandkids and we have like the dining table. So we host, and everyone knows there's no way in a million years we would ever have a dead animal of any kind in our house. And in fact, even I would not be comfortable sitting at a holiday table with a dead animal, and that I've been really consistent on that through and through. That's for my own mental health. So I just wouldn't go to an event like that. I would say like, we'll celebrate with you another day. Like I'll be flexible, I'm not going to be like, I'm never going to dine with you again. But, I think table fellowship is important too. Like it is really important to me that people at the same table are eating the same thing. And now that said, easy for me to say, right? Because my family goes along with that.
Yeah.
um, but when people are eating different things, you got the special things here, and like I've got little kids too. They're watching everything. They're absorbing it. Like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? So it's really important to me, like that eating together is about sharing and connection. And can we really share and connect in the same way if it's like there's a dead turkey there, and all I can picture is like that turkey investigation, and like I think you're a bit psychotic for like it's really creating this like distance between us, and I'm very uncomfortable. Like it's so much easier to just have a vegan holiday table. So I don't know, again, I don't want, for a lot of people that's not an option, and my heart truly goes out to you if that's something that you struggle with. I will say though that for Thanksgiving and Christmas, most of it is naturally vegan or can very easily be made vegan. Mashed potatoes, you just use vegan butter and unsweetened soy milk. And any of the dishes that you make, it's very easy to swap out vegan butter, olive oil, something like that. And that's what we do. And then if you want a centerpiece dish, there's tons of vegan meat products you can have. And there's also lots of recipes if you want something more whole foods, like a tart or some kind of pie. If you don't care about like having it to be like a protein main dish, you can also do like a stuffed squash or something really beautiful. If you scroll back on my Instagram, you can see a lot of all the ways that we've celebrated Thanksgiving and Christmas over the years. I typically like to share that because I think it's just such a beautiful plate of food. I also have some recipes on my site for my favorite vegan Thanksgiving and Christmas recipes. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, or if people
Yeah.
have like specific kind of concerns or questions about that, but
Beautiful.
yeah.
And Kirsten just put your Instagram account in the chat
Nice.
in
Thank
case
you,
somebody isn't
Kristen.
already following you.
Okay.
So tell me, like you have a lot, you like to work with a lot of tips and tricks to make things a little bit easier and more streamlined. Um, and you also work with really short list of ingredients. So is there an ingredient that you feel sort of understood or understood and underutilized that you're like just a big fan of, or a couple of different like staples?
I will say that I have a few ingredients like that where I'm just like, wow, this is such a bomb ingredient. And one of those for me is soy sauce. I think soy sauce it's underappreciated only because it's so incredible. Like if I could only have one condiment, it would be soy sauce. And the reason for that is because soy sauce brings a true fermented soy sauce, right? Like not like flavored caramel colored water,
Yeah.
but it's fermented, so it has that complexity, that depth of flavor, and that fermenting creates umami. It creates that savoriness, and that's what meat brings literally to the table. So that's what you want to try to replace. And with soy sauce, it's very easy to get that savoriness, and you won't always like know that you're eating umami or savoriness, but you will miss it. You'll miss its absence. So soy sauce is a really easy way to add that complexity to ingredients. And the other reason I love it is just for the simplicity of it. I mean, if you take some plain noodles and season them with I use soy sauce, and then I also use sesame oil, just those two sauces, and it's really delicious.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah, I love sesame oil. Oh,
yeah,
it just
it's
like
so
adds
good.
so much to any
It's
meal.
so flavorful. It's so flavorful. It's so yummy. And so that's a really easy way of like creating a super quick meal. Like I have a recipe in my book, sesame, let's see if I can find it quickly. Sesame, soba noodles with, okay, there. Okay. So it's this dish. I have my blur on the back so I can see, but it's really, really simple. You can see how short the ingredients list is. It literally takes 10 minutes. It's in the lunch chapter because it is so quick and it's also portable. And that makes use of that holy dyad of soy sauce and sesame oil. Okay, so that's one ingredient. I could proselytize about it all day. Another ingredient that I love to use is coconut milk. It adds a lot of, so now again, we're talking about replacing the fattiness of meat. Meat brings fattiness. Even a chicken breast, like a skinless chicken breast, has more fat than lentils. So it is important to think about replacing that satiety. We need good fats to make us feel satisfied, to make a meal, make our stomachs feel full, and to keep us full for longer. Can you get the same umami with tamari? Yes, absolutely, same thing. Whatever works for you. And coconut milk is a really good one to add into like lentils, soup, stew, dal, that kind of thing. So that's another one that I always have on hand, a good quality coconut milk.
Cheryl had earlier had asked about just the concern, some people's concerns with too much sodium in soy sauce. Is that a concern at all for you, Anna?
It does have a lot of sodium. It's not a concern for me. I think when you are cooking, when I cook at home pretty much exclusively, we very rarely eat out, maybe a handful of times a year. And when I do eat out, I notice how it's so salty and I'm so thirsty afterwards. So I think and I say that just to show that kind of like, I know that the amount of salt that I'm using is sort of less than it could otherwise be, less than like a high sodium diet. So I know that using some sodium, some salt is important for deliciousness. Salt is what wakes up all the other flavors in our dish. And I'm always amazed by how you can really transform something with the addition of a little more salt.
I know. I'm saltaholic.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I do talk about this in my book, how to sort of like maximize the benefits of salt without like compromising on health, because yes, we also need to be mindful of not having too much sodium for our bones and for our hearts. But so in my family, like at breakfast, because we usually have oats, so we'll have like oat waffles, oat pancakes, oatmeal, granola. This is virtually salt-free recipes. So we're banking some salt time for later. Yes. And then later in the day, I also have in the book, like what are like the Health Canada guidelines for sodium per age, etc. So yeah, so I have done the calculations and figured it out and worked it into my diet. And I think, as it's high in sodium, but you don't need very much of it. It's a really good way to be enjoying delicious sodium. So we have to enjoy our food too, right?
Absolutely. And the sodium problems come in processed foods, and like the foods that we're not, or a lot of people add salt to their cooking when it's not needed, like boiling potatoes and putting in a bunch of salt,
Yes.
And
exactly.
so I think if you're really mindful and it's used at the right time in the right way, then yeah, it's nothing compared to what most people are having in their diet in North America.
Yeah, exactly. Just be judicious about it. And you can also, like, to kind of minimize the amount of salt that you need, you can sprinkle your salt on the top of your dish so that it's hitting your taste buds. You still want some in your dish because it's got to be kind of integrated throughout, but don't make it like, don't go like restaurant style sodium level in the dish. Make it sort of like half salty and then add some on top. And I'm the say, I actually had this like conversation with my editor about the book, because she is like, oh, should we talk about like making your pasta water salted? Because they say, like, real chefs will say, like, make it salty like the sea. And I said no, because first of all, I think it's wasteful that most of that salt is getting dumped down the drain, and that salt that needs to be harvested and transported and packaged and everything. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, like, I don't want to be so much salt throughout the dish. I want to be kind of like judiciously adding it and then putting it on top. So those are that's my random assortment of thoughts on sodium.
Yeah, yes. And Debbie's asking, is Bragg's liquid aminos a good substitute for soy sauce? Which I've been trying to use it because, I'm on this sort of, I'm training right now, fitness wise. And so I was told, okay, it's too much salt in the soy sauce, so use Bragg's, but it's not the same. It doesn't taste the same.
Yeah, if you like it, then it is a good substitute. You can certainly swap it 1 for 1 in any recipe, and especially in a sauce where it's not like the main flavor. Like if you're mixing it into like a peanut sauce or something like that, then I think it's just fine if you like it. Bragg's is also really good for people who are celiac or gluten intolerant, because it does not contain wheat, and soy sauce is typically brewed with wheat. Actually, lately, the last soy sauce that I got, I went to a store, and I actually shared this in my Instagram stories, like looking at all the different soy sauces. And the only one soy sauce that was naturally brewed and didn't contain a bunch of additives was the Kikkoman soy sauce. like
Yeah.
really like comment. I don't, probably everyone's like, yeah, we know we've been like buying that for decades, but I had never bought it before, and I was really impressed actually with how delicious it was. And I love when I discover things like that because it's so accessible. Like I don't care where you live, you can probably buy Kikkoman soy sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. Calvin's asking, what are your top one or two favorite recipes in your book?
So every morning, pretty much like late for the last like more than a year, we've been making oat waffles. The oat waffles recipe. I have a bunch of waffles recipes in the books because they're
Mm,
so easy. So oat waffles. On the weekend, we typically make either the tofu scramble, which is like the world's most simple tofu scramble recipe, like as easy to make as scrambled eggs.
mhm.
Or we make the brunch hash. The brunch hash is, guys, it is so good. It's so delicious. The secret is the fried fennel seed. And yes, I know I'm always going on about fried fennel seeds, but in this case, the brunch hash has fried fennel seeds and potatoes. And the combination of the fennel aroma and the potato, the texture of the potato, it makes you think you're eating sausage. I will serve it to people and they'll say, "Is there sausage in this?" And it's not. It's just like it's whole foods and it's very tasty. That's for breakfast. I've shared the soba noodles. That's a favorite for lunch. For dinners, one of the recipes that I've made the very most is the basic cashew cream pasta. Really simple recipe, but just it's so easy. It's the recipe, as I say in the book, that got me through like postpartum days and everything like that. Somebody actually messaged me. I don't know, maybe she's here, Anne from Vancouver Island. She messaged me yesterday to say that she had made it and she was like blown away. Like she wanted to share it, and she's like, I just can't believe it. So that's a good one to try. Oh my gosh, you guys, you know, the truth is, I love them all. I mean,
I
all of
know
the
it's like
recipes.
asking you who your favorite child is.
Yeah,
Calvin, that's cruel.
oh, they're all pretty good. They're all the recipes that we really make. Like, there's no, it's just really the food that we eat. And actually, at the intro level to each chapter, I shout out the ones that I make even more. Like, really, the ones that are like constantly in the dinner rotation. So if you do have the book, make sure to look at the chapter intro for the recipes that I'm like really, really super make these ones.
Amazing. Well, Anna, I just want to read a couple of things that people have said about your book in the Facebook group and here. Connie said, this is so helpful for families, Anna. It's fairly easy for me to be vegan, but it would have been daunting when I had a young family. And Goldie said, it has healthy, balanced recipes, so we get our daily servings of nutrients. Anne said, I love this book, great recipes with just a few ingredients. Would have been so helpful when I was raising my kids.
Yeah. Oh, that's Anne I think that's Anne. Hi, Anne.
Yeah, that's Anne. So Anna, where can they get the cookbook? Where can they get the Vegan Family Cookbook?
Oh, okay. So if you go to easyanimalfree.com/cookbook, you can click on sort of your preferred retailer. It's available virtually everywhere that books are sold. So you can, one of the cool things that I have, there's like a buy local tab. You can click on that and then it takes you to my publisher's website, Penguin Random House. And they have this very cool feature, which is you put in your postal code and then it shows you the smaller independent booksellers near you that have the book, and it even says, I think, whether they have it in stock. So that's pretty handy. But if you are in a phase of life where you need to order Prime delivery on Amazon, that is also fine. And it's in stock there too, or Indigo, anywhere.
Oh man, I haven't really had my breakfast yet. I know it's late, and
Really?
as soon as we started talking about tofu, I was like, oh, I have that tofu in the
Oh,
fridge. Now I'm looking at all of the sweet stuff too, and I'm like, oh god.
oh no.
Here we go.
Go to a cooking fest after that.
Donna Lou said, Book City has it, buy local in Toronto. Yes,
Oh,
Donna
nice.
Lou, amazing.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, Kirsten put the link in the comments. Anna, I just have to say, you know, I miss working with you on animal, you know, direct animal advocacy stuff, but I am just so glad you are still working your magic in the world for animals. And I love that you show how many ways that we can advocate for animals, because that's one of the things we talk about a lot in Animal Justice Academy. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. And yes, every single person has unique skills and gifts, and I hope everyone will feel empowered. And I'm sure you are empowering everyone to contribute in how they can.
Amazing. Okay, I want to bring it back to our gallery view. Can you see everybody again, Anna? I just want to give Anna a great big Animal Justice Academy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
You get the jazz hands, Anna. Folks, I just wanted to mention really quick, our next Lunchtime Live is in 2 weeks, back on Thursday, our regular day, December 9th. And we're going to talk about surviving being an animal advocate during the holiday season. So we talked a lot about food today, but we want to also talk about, when we all feel centered and well-adjusted animal advocates, and then we go and hang out with the family who want to know why we're so extreme, or we go to a Christmas party where there's no vegan options, or we're sitting at a table with a dead turkey. Bring your questions, your worries, your challenging situations to us to troubleshoot and problem solve. It's going to be me and a special guest that I'll reveal when in a few days. So I hope you'll join us for that. Anna, thank you so much, my friend, and everybody that doesn't have it, get it and share it with your friends widely. And maybe we'll have a cooking party together.
Oh, that would be so fun. And thank you so much to everyone for coming. I am always so amazed that people want to come and listen to me blabber on about things. So thank you.
Well, we'll have a lot of people watching the replay too. So hello to you folks. And thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Anna, and have a wonderful rest of your day and week, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Kimberly. Thank you.